Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon, Geeky Sparkles sitting this video out. We're going to talk about the continued implosion of digital media, of journalism, quote unquote. I'm using air quotes so you can't see it. But yeah, Giant Bomb laid people off after Polygon laid people off because Polygon got sold to Valnet. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the Washington Post pivoting to AI. And this is after a lot of their journalists had a fit over Jeff Bezos telling them they couldn't endorse Kamala Harris. I mean, and this is after Trump pulled the funding on PBS and the NPR, like, and on top of the lawsuits with CBS and 60 Minutes and all that jazz. Like, I mean, everything is changing. Everything is imploding. And you've got all these journalists out there, these digital journalists who have only known summer. And they're out there and they're like, well, if somebody's hiring, let me know. I'm like, nobody is hiring. No one is coming to save you, right? And now, to be fair, there are some of these people who are getting laid off who are going out and starting their own thing. I agree with that. I think it's a good thing to do. I think that's the only way forward. If you're a journalist, air quotes, the only way forward is you're going to have to do it yourself. Now, are you going to get paid if you do it yourself? I don't know. I'm going to be honest. I have no idea. Some of you will. If you're likable, if you already have a sizable following, you will. But a lot of you are not going to. So then what we're going to find out is who actually likes this nerd stuff and who doesn't. Who is willing to do the work and talk about it without a financial reward and a financial incentive, and who was clearly just to get a boost for their own careers. A lot of these people obviously wanted to work for places like the Washington Post, and those jobs are going to dry up too. I mean, it's just crazy to see how much this scene has changed. I mean, we went from like nerd journos and gaming journos dominating this space and choking out a lot of the independent voices out there to almost all of them being gone within the span of what, like 6 months, 8 months. It's ridiculous. So let's talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. Speaking of pop culture news and views, go out to news.clownfishtv.com. We're still going to give the website the old college try. I don't expect to make much money off of it, but if you guys want to check it out and you want to help support us, go out to news.clownfishtv.com. We're going to be trying to add some new things over there. Yeah, even Video Games Chronicle, which is, I think, a corporate, I'm pretty sure this is a corporate owned site. Let me see. That's what I'm looking at here. Let's go down the bottom here. Who owns 44 Bytes owns this. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure who owns. No, thanks. Who owns Video Game Chronicles, but they have a Patreon strip up here. So that's the way everybody's going, right? You're going to have to do it yourself. Anyway, they have the article, Giant Bomb, future of Giant Bomb website in doubt following prominent staff departures. The brand will undergo a strategic realignment according to its owner Fandom. Strategic realignment means we're going to probably crank out more guides, probably crank out more AI or AI assisted content to answer people's questions. I mean, part of the reason that all these websites are dying is that Google changed the algorithm. We talked about this. Everybody thought I was being alarmist. I was not being alarmist at all. I said all these websites are going to die because Google has effectively shut the traffic off to them. So for the longest time, these websites survived because they would do, SEO optimization, and they would chase the algorithm and chase trends. And then one day, I mean, it was like a light switch. And look, this hit us too. We had a whole bunch of websites before, and we've been running websites for like 20 years. But one day Google decided they were just going to flip that light switch, and they were going to keep everybody on their search page so they could monetize them better. And they were going to use AI snippets to give people answers to questions. So they never went to your website. But to be fair, a lot of these websites never really offered up a lot of information. There was a lot of opinions, but I mean, sometimes you go like, hey, I want a recipe for this. And you would go to that website and you'd have to dig through piles and piles of ads, video ads, all this stuff. Every site you go to now, even it's like, turn your ad blocker off, turn your ad blocker off. They're desperate. They're absolutely desperate. And then they're like, well, we're going to go paywalled. And I'm like, well, okay, it's going to be really hard to get people to pay for stuff. One, if they don't like you, if they hate you, nobody's going to pay for Polygon, right? And two, if you've been giving them news for free for years, it is going to be very, very hard to take it away. So, and not, you're not going to get the amount of support that you need to make it a sustainable business and give these people, a lot of these journalists who want like $100,000 a year to write hit pieces on gamers. It's ridiculous. The venture capital is gone. The low interest or no interest loans are gone. And now the ad revenue is gone. So yeah, you're going to see a lot of these sites collapse because they were never sustainable. At the end of it, we're going to have maybe, 3 or 4 bigger video game sites. I think like IGN will probably be fine. So, they'll probably change how they do things. You'll have some fan sites out there. You'll have some forums out there, but it's probably going to look a lot like it did before, like 2012, 2013. And that's not a bad thing. And here's why it's a good thing. Anyway, back to the article. The news comes after weeks of uncertainty around the website, which abruptly ceased live streaming content last month. I didn't even know they did live streams. Earlier this week, the 888th episode of the Giant Bombcast, one of the longest running video game podcasts of all time, was published and then swiftly removed. Yeah, Giant Bomb got sold a couple of times. I remember they got sold to Fandom. CBS owned a cluster of video game sites. They sold, and they paid through the nose for them. And then they had a fire sale when things were getting rough about 2 years ago. The ad rates started dropping off. And then they sold them to Fandom, and then Fandom just started shutting sites down or gutting staff. The episode included a lengthy section where the host mocked a series of overreaching brand guidelines given to the website by the current owner, Fandom. These guidelines include rules on swearing and other restrictions on the content, which were entirely different from the style of content that Giant Bomb has built its reputation on, hence the mockery from the cast. On his last of the Nintendogs podcast, following the removal, Giant Bomb staff member Jeff Grubb, not to be confused with tabletop legend Jeff Grubb, this is a different Jeff Grubb, said that while the decision to remove the episode wasn't his decision, the decision to keep it down was. Longtime staff member Dan Reichert discussed the issue facing the site during a stream on Wednesday, claimed he would never appear on Giant Bomb again, and that the direction Fandom was taking the company was not one he'd like to be a part of. I believe Fandom is owned in part by Tencent. I'm not sure how much they own of it or if they own all of it, but they're a Chinese company and they're going to crack down on content. I mean, they are. So, and they own, I am pretty sure, Screen Junkies. I am pretty sure they own that one too. So that means honest trailers probably aren't going to be that honest. Although I did watch one for Captain America 4 the other night, and it was freaking hysterical. But anyway, I digress. So I guess sometimes they can be funny. Yeah, so Grubb has confirmed his departure, writing, well, that was a dream come true. I knew it wouldn't last, though. Out of a job at the moment, but I'll always be doing Patreon. That's where you're going to have to go. Again, news.clownfishtv.com. If you want to support us, you can support us over there. But that's what's going to happen to a lot of these people. And then they had the second win. That was a bunch of like video game personalities. And that thing, they were making like $50,000-$60,000 a month on Patreon. And then there was a bunch of infighting. So I imagine that's going to happen too. Like anytime you get a bunch of these media personalities together in a group, there's always infighting. There's always infighting. Infighting and egos. That should be the new D&D. Infighting and egos, almost always. So, I think that individual creators will do their thing, or maybe they'll have a very small staff or whatever, but you're not going to get like 24 journos in some group again, I don't think, to start something big, because they're all going to eat each other alive. It happens all the time. Giant Bomb owner Fandom has responded to the uncertainty around the brand. As you know, we've temporarily paused Giant Bomb live streaming. That content is currently available on demand for our audience, they told Kotaku. So Kotaku is writing the obituaries for all of their peers, and pretty soon I don't know if they'll write their own, but we understand this programming pause isn't ideal for our audience, but it's part of a strategic reset and realignment of our media brands. Translation: they're not making money and they're trying to figure out how to make them make money, and they might just, collapse a lot of these websites into each other. This happened at GeoMedia too. They had a bunch of brands that they bought, and then they just kind of became subdomains of the top level domain, and then eventually just like a tab. And that's what happened with a lot of the comic book sites, because there wasn't enough interest in comic books to sustain to the numbers that they wanted, right? An independent comic book site. So they would buy up, what was it, Newsarama, and then they rolled that into a video game site. We have some creative ideas for the future of Giant Bomb that we're actively working on that we'll be able to communicate more about soon. Yeah, good luck with that. Giant Bomb was launched in 2008 by Jeff Gerstmann following his termination from GameSpot. That seems to be how a lot of these sites pop up. Oh, I got fired, I got laid off, whatever. I'm going to go start a site. I can't say anything. We actually had a Disney theme park site that we co-founded with a partner / investor. And that came about because I got laid off from my other job. So it was like, okay, let's throw some money at this thing. Got a lot of free food. I got a lot of free food over the years. We got to go to all kinds of events. Alongside Brad Shoemaker, Vinny Caravella, and Ryan Davis served as the site's original staff, pioneering video content of the video game media industry. Giant Bomb built a loyal following due to the staff's unwavering honesty and the rapidly growing Giant Bomb cast. Yeah, Giant Bomb was pretty good back in the day. I mean, I'm thinking back to, it's not the early internet, but the aughts. And I used to go to Giant Bomb. I went to Destructoid a lot. IGN didn't completely suck back then. Hell, I remember IGN when it first started, and it wasn't that great. It's just like everything is so crazy now. Like, then all these sites, I would say the start of the decline of the video game sites was when, like, we started getting these corporate entities involved, and we had the Vices and the Voxes deciding to get into the video game space. The Polygons and the Kotakus and the Waypoints and all of that. And then everything just kind of came off the rails, because all the early sites, all the early video game sites and movie news sites, they were fan powered. And, sometimes the owners would have financial success, but they talked about these things because they cared about these things. They were invested in these things. And, sometimes money came along with it and sometimes it didn't. But you could tell who was actually about this stuff and it was just bullshit. And it was just, chasing trends. And, and we're going to talk about more about Valnet, because Valnet is one of the biggest perpetrators, I think, of the enshittification of pop culture news sites, because they bought them all up and turned them into clickbait farms. That's what they did. In 2013, Ryan Davis passed away at age 34. I forgot about that. I think where they realized there are not most people who write about video games kind of wanted to be Ryan Davis. Said Justin McElroy, I know I did. Ryan was one of the rare voices that was able to be brutally critical and frank and funny and still be well liked by basically everybody. In 2020, Giant Bomb was sold by CBS to Red Ventures as part of a deal that also saw the sale of CNET and GameSpot. The following year, Brad Shoemaker, Vinny Caravella, and Alex Navarro announced they were leaving the company. They formed Nextlander, a Patreon-supported outlet. Is that still a thing? Let's see. Apparently, it's still a thing. They've got 13,000 members yesterday. Yeah, so they're still updating. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good, right? In June, it was announced that the site's last remaining founder, Jeff Gerstmann, would be leaving. He would later confirm on his new podcast that he was fired. Can you imagine being the founder of a website and getting fired from your own website? Oh, well, that happened to me. That was a whole thing. It involved a lawsuit. We won, by the way. We did win, but yeah, we didn't get the website. We should have taken the website. We didn't get the website though. He was fired, although he later said he planned to leave the company prior to his termination. In October 2022, Giant Bomb was acquired by Fandom Inc. Months later, 2 Giant Bomb staffers, including longtime video producer Jason Ostreicher, were laid off. Yada, 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 yada. Yeah, so rinse and repeat. Polygon laid a bunch of people off. We talked about that yesterday. Now they're going to go start their own microsite. I'm going to tell you, some of these people will be fine. A lot of them will not be fine. Now, what's interesting, speaking of Polygon, is Vox sold Polygon to Valnet. Now, Valnet, as I found out yesterday, is suing the Wrap. Because remember that hit piece? I don't know if it was a hit piece. Would you call it a hit piece or an expose on the owner of Valnet? And they dug up a lot of dirt. Now, it is, to the best of my knowledge, factual. So I guess if you're digging up facts on a business owner, and all these things can be proven, I don't think it's defamatory. But apparently they're suing the Wrap now for like millions and millions of dollars, which is so weird. They mention it in this article too. And I talked about Valnet. Valnet is part of the reason I believe that the nerd geek scene has been so homogenous and so full of activists, because they would basically hire people on the cheap. But what would happen is you would grow your own website. It would get to a certain size, and then they would make an offer and buy it. And if you wouldn't sell your site, as I understand it, right? I haven't had personal experience with it, but as I understand it, talking to other site owners, they would make you an offer. And if you said no, then they would basically try to run you out of business. Yeah, they'd do what they would have to do to bury your site. And super, super, super competitive. And yeah, now they're suing the Wrap too, which is so weird. I said the terms of the deal were not disclosed. Probably fire sale. It's probably a fire sale. Vox is not doing well. Charlie Hull, I feel nothing. Kotaku was the first outlet to report the news. The sale comes, here we go. This is coming from the Wrap. The sale comes a day after Valnet, the digital media company behind sites like Screen Rant, Collider, CBR, which used to be Comic Book Resources, and MovieWeb, sued the Wrap for $64.5 million in damages over an investigative article about the owner's past ties to porn sites and sweatshop working conditions for its writers. Well, it's not defamatory if it's true, right? I mean, if that's where the money came from to start Valnet, came from porn, and there were some questionable ethics, I guess, involved that they unearthed. I mean, if it's true, it's true. And if they didn't want the truth out there, then they had, years to do some damage control or whatever. They actually threatened to sue us. We mentioned that yesterday. They actually tried to shut us up. They wrote us and said, you take that video down talking about us. And the video, all we did was react to the expose. And they threatened us. They were going to try to shut us up. And you may be opening yourself up to litigation, maybe, possibly, maybe. And I'm like, how? How are we opening ourselves up to litigation by reacting to an article written on another website? Please explain this to me. And my understanding is that they were just throwing their weight around, trying to get us to shut up. We're used to it. Not our first rodeo, clown. We've been through this before. The article by senior reporter and defendant Humberto Gonzalez cited 15 current and former contributors who said Valnet routinely exploits writers, replaces them with cheap contractors, and blacklists any who complain. You can read the full report here. They're not taking it down. The sale also comes after Vox, the parent company of New York Magazine, The Verge, and Vulture, had multiple rounds of job cuts between 2024 and 2025. Again, I am speculating here, but I think that in the case of Valnet, I think they were looking maybe to sell the company or something, and then the expose might have thrown a wrench into it because everybody's jumping ship. The WGA, speaking of the Wrap, is slamming the Polygon layoffs. They've fired everybody basically. But the thing is how can you keep people on if you can't keep the lights on? Right? I mean, these sites are failing. They're failing. They're just outright failing. How can you pay people if you don't have any money to pay them? They said there's only a month left, I guess, until the current union contract expired at Vox. The company said yesterday, and that sold Polygon, laid off the bargaining unit at the site. It's hard to fathom management's commitment to its workers and its readers when this marks the 5th round of layoffs in just the last 6 months. There is no commitment to the workers or the readers. What readers? There aren't enough readers anymore. That's the problem, right? I mean, in a perfect world, everybody would be able to do whatever they wanted to do and get paid a ridiculous amount of money to do it. But there's no demand for this kind of air quotes, journalism anymore. And Google shut the traffic off. And they're probably bleeding out money, and they tossed Polygon overboard to try to save themselves some money. And it's like, what are they worried about? Oh, we're going to piss off the union. Well, we're not going to hire these people back anyway. I don't think Vox is long for this world either. It said Vox employees have been hit by multiple rounds of layoffs in recent months. In January, at least 10 employees lost their jobs, including multiple director level figures. Yes, because they're expensive. That round of layoffs was preceded by several others in January and late 2024 that resulted in a downsizing of the staff at Thrillist, Vox, Eater, and Pop Sugar. Yeah, we said this would probably happen. Vox touts its progressive values and its responsibility to build a better media industry by amplifying historically excluded voices. But the only thing clear at the moment is that Vox Media and the CEO have taken extreme actions to weaken the bargaining unit, said the WGA. Again, I'm not going to get into the weeds on it. I don't know what their agreement is like. All I know is these websites, I know the condition a lot of these websites are in. And you're talking, some of these sites were probably pulling in at one point in time, like $1 million a month in advertising or more. And now they're making like nothing. Like they're probably, if I had to guess, if I just had to guess, given the current ad rates and the traffic numbers, I think they would be lucky to be making a few $1,000s a month. And you've got how many people eating off that plate, right? It's just not going to happen. And then the mom and pop owned sites, the independent sites are worse. There are people out there that were doing it for a full-time job, and now you're making, a couple $100 a month, a couple $1,000s a month, maybe, if you're lucky. It's just, everything is just collapsed. It's just absolutely insane. Then they're pissed off at the Washington Post. So now the Washington Post is partnering with OpenAI. So the Post's essential journalism is featured in ChatGPT search responses. Yeah, the reason they're doing that, survival. We know that the Washington Post isn't in a good place either. Nobody's subscribing to them, and the journos are mad at Jeff Bezos. And look, this is the end game. We're in the end game now. So all the people in this digital media space and the newspaper space or whatever, they're going to get what they can get before the whole thing just craters. It's already there. They're going to sell websites. They're going to toss people overboard. They're going to cut deals with AI companies. They're going to do what they can do. And I do believe that's what Valnet was thinking. And that's why they're so pissed off about that expose, because they're probably looking to unload all those websites. I know what these rates are like. I talk to people. I know approximately what the revenue in some of these websites are, and it's nothing compared to what it used to be. They can't afford these people. They can't afford to even, hell, the hosting for some of these sites is probably killing them. Because they're probably getting a lot of traffic, but it's got ad blockers and the rates aren't that good. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. But this is it. This is Endstage video game journalism. We said it was going to happen this year. I told you last year. I'm not trying to be that guy. I told you so. But we told you so. We told you it was going to happen this year. And a lot of the big catalyst was the 1-2 punch of the venture capital running out and then Google shutting the traffic off. So let's wrap it up, guys. Please subscribe. We'll talk later.